on in the next couple minutes probably, but it's 9 o'clock. So we will get started, and I'll just start with some housekeeping items while people are jumping on. So this webinar will be recorded. I think that Liz just started recording it right now, and it will be available on our website. Liz, when do you think the recordings will be available? Next week?
Definitely next week if I'm feeling really like with it, you know, within 24 hours to 48 hours. It just depends. I didn't get the one from yesterday up yet, but I probably will try to put these two up. But you can guarantee by next week they'll all be up.
Sounds good. So we're recording today. We're gonna have everybody on mute, but please ask questions. You can do that one of two ways. You can click the hand raise icon, so you can raise your hand, and Liz will be monitoring that. If she sees that your hand is raised, she can unmute you and you can ask your question verbally. Otherwise, you can type a question in the chat box, and when Liz sees chat box or things in the chat box, she'll just stop me and let me know that we've got some questions. So either way, please do feel free to ask questions. This was a little difficult to prepare because I think that some of the information will be very basic for some folks and kind of overwhelming for other folks. So, you know, definitely feel free to ask, interrupt, insert comments throughout, which I know is hard on a webinar, but we've got the hand raising function in the chat box. So I will just start by introducing myself. I'm Beth Gaitan. I am the Southwest South Central Regional Literacy Consultant with Wisconsin Literacy. So I'm basically have the same position for those of you who have Marsha or Anna or Shannon as your RLCs. That's my position in the Southwest South Central part of the state. I also, though, work more on a statewide basis with corrections. So I support programming, literacy programming, GED programming in the DOC, so the state prisons. And then we're really trying to do more work with the county jails. So helping communities partner, jails, tech college, literacy organizations partner to serve incarcerated folks in the jail. So that's really what this webinar is about today. Like I mentioned, let's see. So Anna, I'm not, okay, there we go. All right, so this is really going to cover the AEFLA basics. So the grant basics. We'll talk about the specific corrections education funding within AEFLA, the umbrella funding. So we're going to go over basic funding requirements and then what components make a strong application. Everything in this webinar is directly from the Wisconsin Technical College System grant guidelines. So on the PowerPoint, you see the link there. I can also send the link to you by email. So just let me know if you are not able to find this document. All right, so AEFL Basics, AEFLA is Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. So this is Title II of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So WIOA is probably something that we've been hearing a lot about lately. That's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And there are 4 titles within that act. So Title I is for adult dislocated workers and youth programs, and that's overseen by DWD. Title III is the Wagner-Peiser Act, that's overseen by DWD. And then Title IV is vocational rehabilitation, which is also overseen by DWD. So Title II is what we're focusing on, and that's Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. So this is federal money that is administered by the Wisconsin Technical College System. So our applications and our reporting, everything goes through the Wisconsin Technical College System, and they in turn report to the federal government. So the intention of this act, of Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, is to give adults quality opportunities to improve basic skills. So we're really looking at high quality research-based programs for adults. So the purpose of the AEFLA funding is that adults are economically self-sufficient. It's helping adult parents help their kids be more successful in school. And it's focused on family income. So increasing a family's ability to be self-sufficient, to get off public assistance. Another purpose is helping adults attain their GED. And really this is focused on not just GED, but GED then becoming employed or then transferring to a post-secondary ed. So maybe the career pathways program at the tech college. There is a component of English language learners in AEFLA funding, and that's really focused on improving English and math skills, understanding responsibilities of American citizenship. This does not always mean formal citizenship as a naturalization, but really understanding American government and how to be an active citizen or community member. There is a huge focus on integrated education and training, so IET, within this AEFLA funding. This is really, it's alignment with local industries. So it's very community-based. You would look at your specific community and look at what are the needs of local industry. So what are the jobs available? What jobs are critical, like they really need workers. So every community might have a different focus, but every program within AEFLA funding should be focused on their local employment needs. Another purpose of AEFLA funding is that adults learn how to work toward their individual educational and career goals through a personal education plan, so a PEP. So they work on this personal education plan with their community, with their school or literacy agency, and they're identifying their goals, specific steps and timelines to meeting those goals. And there are different templates for PEPs to use and to create as your own, but it is very focused. So in a nutshell, this money is to help adults and families become self-sufficient, so make more money at work, however they need to do that, whether it's through getting a GED, through a career pathways program, learning English, becoming more proficient in English, however, whatever basic skills they need. And then it's also focused on supporting the local industrial needs of the community. So there are two different categories of grant funding within this AEFLA funding. So the first category is the comprehensive service grant. And this is, it actually can be one organization or it can be a consortium. It's usually a consortium. But what this category is you must, the consortium or the agency must prove that they offer adult education, literacy, workplace adult education, family literacy, English language activities, integrated literacy, English literacy and civics, workforce preparation, integrated education and training, so that IET. So they are really doing everything. They're offering all of the workforce education, the basic literacy skills. They're offering wraparound services. So that's why this is usually a consortium. Often one agency is not able to offer all of those different services. So the lead, there does need to be one lead applicant, and the lead applicant would partner with other agencies who offer academic or non-academic support. So that could be an agency who offers case management or career guidance, tutoring, childcare, support for students with disabilities, financial assistance for education, anything like that. So the lead applicant would look at what they are missing, and they would look for partners within the grant to offer all of those wraparound academic and non-academic services. So the lead applicant has to meet a local maintenance of effort level. So if the lead applicant is a college, a technical college, they need to, there are different, WTCS offers or requires different maintenance of effort levels. If it's a non-college, if the lead applicant is not a technical college, they need to provide a 25% cost sharing. So it's just essentially a match. It can be with funding, it can be in-kind support, but the lead applicant does need to show essentially a 25% match. They also must partner with the American Job Center Network and must have an MOU with the local Workforce Development Board. So in order to submit this funding, the lead applicant really does need to have quite a few ducks in order. So they need to make sure that their application is offering all of the academic and non-academic services, that they are able to have that 25% cost sharing. They partner with the job center. They have an MOU with the Workforce Development Board. And then they may also need to contribute some of their grant funding to infrastructure for the local job center. The application in a comprehensive service grant needs to offer a systematic approach to career development and integrated education and training. So learners, there needs to be a clear pathway showing how learners will access better jobs. And staff, all staff within this comprehensive service needs to access high quality research-based professional development. So that's the comprehensive service grant. The other category of funding within this AEFLA funding is called the special focus. This also can be an organization, so a single organization, or a consortium. And this grant is focusing on a high need population, or it's addressing an identified unmet need in a community. So for example, institutionalized adults, skilled immigrants, deaf and hard of hearing, refugees, homeless adults, students with disabilities, civics education, all of those are examples of a special focus grant. What we are going to focus on today, obviously, would be the institutionalized adults, because we're looking at the corrections money. But so when we look at a special focus award, again, the grant will only cover 75% of the project cost. So similar to the comprehensive service, a special focus grant does need to show a 25% match. Again, this can be with cash or it can be in-kind support. So there is flexibility there. This is not necessarily, if you think, okay, well, we just don't want to partner, we're going to do a special focus grant. That's not the intention of this. The intention is still that the applicant is working with community members. So collaboration is still a really big part of this grant. And the awards depend on the number of learners served. So if you serve 25 to 49 learners within this grant project, you can ask for $25,000. If you serve 50 to 99 learners, you can ask for between $25,000 and $54,999. And then if you're serving over 100 learners in this grant project, you can ask for $55,000 to $85,000. So your award amount really will depend on the number of students you say you will serve. All right, so that's a lot of information. Those are the two broad categories of grant funding. We're going to now kind of dig down into corrections. So the funding that can be used for corrections education. And so either grant category works. It can be corrections education can be an emphasis of a special focus application, or it can be a subcomponent of a comprehensive services application. So you can use corrections money through AEFLA, can support, it has to be adult criminal offenders. So this is for adults. You can do adult basic education, basic literacy, English language skills, civics, GED, peer tutoring. So peer tutoring is a very common instructional method used in the prisons. So that's something that works well also in county jails, or can. The turnover rate with learners in county jails makes it maybe a little bit more difficult, but peer tutoring is an option. It can be integrated education and training, career pathways, workforce preparation, employability skills. So this is really, again, the focus is adults become self-sufficient. So basic skills and employability skills for adults who are criminal offenders. If it's part of a comprehensive services application, there needs to be a separate part of the application for corrections education. So you would have the comprehensive services is usually by a technical college region. So it's really looking at comprehensive services within this college region. And this corrections education could be a subcomponent. So within the wider comprehensive grant application, you would have some separate documents only related to the corrections education. So the list of activities, the budget, and the standard financial report. There needs to be a separate one for the wider project and then a separate one for your corrections activities. And a correctional institution can be a jail, a prison, a reformatory, a work farm, a detention center, a halfway house, a community-based rehabilitation center. So there's quite a different opportunity or options to work with different entities who are working with justice-involved adults. The one thing that AEFL funding cannot be used for, which is kind of a big deal, is GED testing fees, caps, gowns, food, and student stipends. So I think in my mind, when I was looking at this, the thing that popped out the most is the GED vouchers, the testing. You cannot use AEFLA funding to pay for learners' GED tests. All right, so some more on the specific money for corrections. A corrections, whether it's special focus or comprehensive application, the program must promote self-sufficiency and community responsibility. It must prioritize individuals who are likely to be released within 5 years to the, however best you can get that information. It doesn't say you can only serve those folks. It just says that there needs to be, you need to show that you prioritized. And then there needs to be an advisory committee. So this is it's really just making sure that there's local coordination between the justice system and Title II, so this AEFLA money, so the educational programming. The recommendation is that there's a representative from the district attorney's office, public defender's office, or a judge that serves on this advisory committee. So this as I mentioned, you would not be writing this grant as a single entity. You would be partnering, obviously, with the county jail. So this is definitely something the county jail would be able to offer or to help with, or there might already be a committee in existence on something that you would just begin to participate in. So this sounds kind of like a big, it could be a challenge, but I think this is a place where you would really ask for collaboration with the county jail. So yeah, so a successful corrections application really must show that returning citizens, so people who are released from prison or jail, that they will be, that your programming is helping them to become productive citizens and increase their success of reintegration into the community. So again, the basic skills and getting a job that will help them support themselves financially and their families. So we need to now talk about eligible providers. The Wisconsin Technical College System receives this federal funding, and it's their responsibility to distribute it to eligible providers. So eligible providers must be in Wisconsin, can be a local educational agency or higher ed, so tech college, university, can be a community-based organization or volunteer literacy organization. So it can be an organization that's all volunteer run. It can be a faith-based organization, a library, a housing authority, and it can be a consortium of 2 or more agencies listed above and an employer. So there are a lot of different ways that an application, different entities that can apply, but it must be Wisconsin-based. The lead applicant must also demonstrate, and there has to be proof of past effectiveness through performance data. So the lead applicant needs to demonstrate that they have helped learners improve basic literacy skills. That does need to be through the NRS level. So the National Reporting Skills, the levels 1 through 6 for adult basic education or English language literacy, you do need to be able to show that you have had success helping adults improve their NRS levels. You need performance data on employment gains and educational gains. So the educational gains would be different from an NRS score. They would be looking at GED or HSC attainment and transition to post-secondary, so maybe a tech college career pathway. And another requirement is that the eligible provider must align with the Workforce Development Board. So there has to be conversation, there has to be alignment and collaboration with the Workforce Development Board for the region. Right now, so currently in this application period, only if it's a consortium, if it's a comprehensive service grant, only the lead applicant needs to demonstrate past effectiveness through the performance data. But when I checked in with Mark Johnson at WTCS, he said that the U.S. Department of Education has indicated that in the future, that might not be the case. In the future, they might be requiring that every partner demonstrate past effectiveness. So that's just something to have on our radar for the future. But for this upcoming grant cycle, only the lead applicant must demonstrate that. So that's good to know for right now. So a few more requirements to be an eligible provider. An eligible provider needs to show that they have the ability to recruit, orient, enroll, assess, instruct, and retain eligible adults. They have to prove that they will use a personal education plan to help adults meet their goals. They have to address how they're going to help learners with barriers. So that could be transportation, childcare, technology access. Now this next one, this is not a requirement, but it is strongly encouraged that providers collect Social Security numbers. This is used to track employment outcomes through DWD. This is in a corrections education grant. This is often not possible. So this is not a requirement. Don't see this and let this kind of dissuade you from applying. So an eligible provider must also provide basic skills. So you have to show that you can provide instruction that integrates technology. Again, with the corrections, since we're looking at the corrections focus, this can be a challenge. I know of some programs who do receive AEFLA funding for their corrections program, and they were able to purchase Rachel, so the corrections friendly internet, and I'm using air quotes right now. You can't see me. It's not real internet. It's a type of internet, but it allows adults to access technology. You also, as a provider, an eligible provider, you need to follow Wisconsin Technical College Systems College and Career Readiness Standards aligned curriculum. Their curriculum is available on their website. And you must include a pre and a post assessment, and you must use TABE or TABE Class E. You can also use CASAS for English language learners, but when we're looking at before GED prep for native English speakers, so just basic literacy, the TABE 11-12 is required. You also have to show that you employ qualified staff and that you provide professional development. Now remember, employ doesn't mean that it has to be a paid position. So you are, if we look back, let's see, we can have volunteer literacy organizations. So if they're Wisconsin-based and they follow all of the other requirements, they can apply for this money. So it just means that the people providing instruction, you can show that they're qualified and that they have access to quality professional development. You also, agencies really do need to coordinate activities with their local workforce development board, WIOA partners. So that's American Job Center networks. And you need to show that you're supporting career pathways. So remember that the intention of this money is not only to improve basic skills, but it's to improve basic skills in order to help adults get better paying jobs. So that needs to be a very strong part of your application. So these 6 requirements are for eligible providers. So that would be your agencies. Would you be eligible to apply for the funding? We now need to look at who are the eligible individuals. So we need to make sure that we serve people who are eligible to receive this funding. So eligible individuals are, like I said before, adults. They must be 18 years or older. They must live in Wisconsin. They cannot be enrolled in high school or required to be enrolled in high school. They have to have a documented need. So, for example, if they don't have a high school diploma or GED, HSCD, that's a documented need. They must have, if the documented need, if the need is basic skills deficiency, you must show that with the TABE pre-assessment. So remember that TABE is the test of adult basic education. We're using right now, we're into TABE 11-12. Those are the versions, the newest. So you must have an NRS score that shows there's a deficiency in basic skills. If you're working with adult language learners, then you must show that there's deficiency in English proficiency through the TABE Class E. Online, it said WTCS did say Best Plus still. We know this year they approved CASAS. So I'm not sure, looking to the future, TABE Class E, I think, would be the best bet in knowing that assessment will be accepted in the future. So these are the adults we're able to serve with AEFLA funding. And I apologize that this is just a ton of information being thrown at you. The intention is really that you hear the basic requirements and you're able to know if your agency, how your agency could be involved. So could you be a lead applicant? Could you touch base with your tech college and your local county jail and put together, help develop a consortium for a comprehensive or a special focus grant as a consortium? So it's a lot of information. All right, so the tech college, so Wisconsin Technical College System, WTCS, they are required to consider 13 criteria when they look at applications. So they receive the applications for this federal money, and the federal government requires that they consider 13 criteria. So the first is, can the applicant show that they've identified a local workforce development need, and can they demonstrate that they are able to serve adults with limited literacy or limited English proficiency? So can you show that you've identified local employment trends and needs in your community, and that you have a history, you are able to serve adults with limited literacy? Are you able to serve people with disabilities, including learning disabilities? Have you had past success in helping adults improve literacy levels? And remember, when we say literacy levels, what the funders actually want to see are those NRS levels. Can you show that you align with the goals of your workforce development board? So you need to know what the goals of your local workforce development board are, and in your application, you need to say how your program aligns with those goals. Can you show that your program is rigorous, that you have enough instructional hours, that the materials you use in your curriculum are research-based? Is your instruction based on best practice? So is it research-based? And is technology used to increase the time or the quality of learning? Do you have integrated education and training? So is learning based in context? Are you talking about how math is used to pass the math test of the GED, but also how you use math at work? So that's an example. Does staff meet minimum qualifications, and can staff access quality professional development? Do you collaborate with local agencies? Do you offer a flexible schedule and support services? So we're looking again at corrections. This depends on your program. If you're going into a county jail, you aren't deciding the schedule, the jail is, and you're not, none of these support services. The career planning, you would need to provide career planning, or work with a workforce partner to integrate that. But this is something to look at if you're working with folks in Huber, or another entity where where transportation could be an issue. So this will really depend on who your corrections partner is. Do you have a high quality system to track and report outcomes and to monitor program performance? So you just need to show that you can successfully track student information, test pre and post test scores, things like that, and you'll be able to successfully report out to WTCS. And then you just need to show in your application that the community has a need. So when we look at the special focus, this institutionalized adults was a need for a special focus grant. All right, so ton of information. Let's look at some next steps. This was a lot to take in. I'm very happy to send this PowerPoint to you. You've got the WTCS. Oh, let me see, I think we might have a question here. Oh, Yes. So the question is, with the GED vouchers, it makes sense for agencies to be involved with the DCS Corrections grant. So yeah, I had said earlier that you can't use AEFLA funding to pay for GED vouchers, but you can. I see some of you on, some of the attendees are already part of the DCF, Department of Children and Families grant that Wisconsin Literacy has. That money does allow you to use to purchase vouchers. The that specifically is focused on TANF eligible adults. So really the difference is they must be parents. So you could definitely you could combine both funding sources, absolutely. Just knowing that everybody who qualifies for AEFLA funding, if they're not a parent, they would not qualify for DCF funding. So it's acronym soup and lots of different requirements, but you could definitely talk with your RLC or with me if I'm not your RLC, and there's absolutely a way to leverage that DCF funding to provide the GED vouchers for probably many of the learners. All right, so next steps. Like I said, this was a ton of information. So I would start by organizing your thoughts. You need to have your local jail involved. So you really need to, like I said, I can send the PowerPoint. You can look at Wisconsin Technical College Systems grant guidelines online and consider what your agency can do. I would recommend setting up a conversation with your local jail, maybe the tech college, a workforce partner, and really you want to answer some questions internally or with your partners. So what unmet need will you meet? So for example, is a large population at the local county jail, do they need their GED? That's a very easy to identify need. If a lot of the folks and the incarcerated individuals in your local jail, if they already have their GED, do they have another deficiency with basic skills? What outcomes can you realistically meet? So can you help folks achieve their GEDs? Keeping in mind, are you able to, some jails can become testing centers, so they can actually do their test at the jail. Some need to go to the local tech college to do their test. So that's where you really need to have that conversation with your local jail. You don't want to say, yes, we can get this many people to achieve their GED, and then find out you're able to offer the instruction, but there's no way to get the folks actually completing their Pearson VUE tests. So this goes to what barriers will you face and how will you overcome them? How are you going to track and report outcomes? What basic grant requirements do you already do, and what do you need to implement? For example, do you already use TABE? Do you already have personal education plans? Do you already work with your local workforce partner to do career counseling? So really organizing your thoughts. You'll also need to compile data that illustrates past success. Now, if you're in a comprehensive grant this year, or this grant cycle, and you are not the lead applicant, you don't need to do this. But if you want to be the lead applicant, or you're looking at a special focus, you will need to show that you've had past success in adult education. So this would be your success at helping adults improve their national reporting system, their NRS skills, GED attainment, job attainment. Have you helped learners move on to a career pathway at the local tech college? So past successes. And then you need to collaborate. This is a huge, huge part of AEFLA funding, collaboration. So talk with your local tech college, your workforce development board, your W-2 providers. You definitely need to do this. So if your agency doesn't meet basic requirements that I've highlighted today, it doesn't mean that you can't be involved. This is when you might organize your thoughts, talk with your local jail, and then ask your tech college to meet. And I've already heard from some folks that they're asking how they can be a part of a grant. So maybe not be the lead applicant, but how can they be a part of a grant? That's a great option as well. So you're going to want to talk some things that you might think about with your local tech college is they might be able to help with the GED testing on site. They might be able to come to the jail and offer the tests. Your workforce development board and your W-2 providers, so your workforce partners, could offer career counseling, those employment, that employment focus that's required. So really looking at, how you're able to work with your local partners to have a successful application. Let's see. All right. So other next steps is definitely reach out to your RLC. Marcia and Anna and I are very happy to answer questions. We're happy to work with you. We're not going to be able to answer all questions, but we can help find the answers. If you just need someone to listen while you brainstorm how this could possibly fit in with your program, we're here as a support. So that you will be able to, grant applications will be available. They're supposed to go out this fall with a winter 2021 deadline. Funding would start then, not this summer, but the following summer. So we definitely have time there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time to prepare, to talk with potential partners, to organize your thoughts. There's a bit of time to prepare. So I know it's a little awkward to ask questions on a webinar, but does anybody have questions? You can raise your hand. If you want to ask it verbally, you can type it in the chat box. If this was a ton of information and you just need time to process and you want to ask questions individually to your RLCs, that's perfect as well. So I will awkwardly hang out for a couple of seconds and just see if anybody raises their hand or sends a chat. Okay, we have a hand raised. Let's see, we have a hand raised. Okay, so I am going to, Deb, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, Deb, I think you are muted. So if you want to ask a question verbally, just unmute yourself and then you'll be able to ask. Otherwise, I can start taking a look through okay, so one question. Yes, I will send out the PowerPoint to all participants, absolutely. So I will do that. I'm traveling a bit this afternoon. I'll either do it today or definitely by tomorrow.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much. Wow, this is a lot of info.
Yes.
I'm a bit confused though. Isn't this something we've already been a part of and been or is this something brand new? Because it sounds very familiar, Beth.
Yes, so it might be. Some of you might already be part of an AEFLA grant. Deb, I think that you are. I believe this, yes. So some folks, that's why at the beginning when I mentioned that this was kind of hard to create, because some folks are completely new to AEFLA and have never been a part of a grant, and some folks on the call today have. So I think everybody tuning in today has a different level of familiarity with this funding. And this was really just to give everybody an idea of the basic requirements. So some of you, yes, might already be participating in an AEFLA funded app or project.
Beth, this is
yes.
So my understanding is that there's a new grant application process coming up Is that correct? Like in another year or so, or am I confused?
Yes. Yep. So that's what will come out in the fall. So fall of 2020, the applications will be open. So, you know, there's not every year, there's not a guaranteed open application period. This year there will be. So this is why it's so important. If you think you might want AEFLA funding, this year is really the year to prepare and apply, because we don't know when we'll next have an open competition period. But this coming year, there will be an open competition period for AEFLA. So the announcement will be in the fall, and the application deadline will be in the winter. So probably January 2021. And awards would start in the summer of 2021.
So if you are in Deb's case, like you are already participating, would this be now a good opportunity to get your ducks in a row and talk to your partners and see who's reapplying, or if you can continue to be in the grant? How would that process?
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so you'd want to be considering if you're going to reapply, and if your application will be the same as what it's been, or if you're looking at changes. But yeah, there's the application. There will be an open enrollment period or open competition period, so anybody can apply for this money starting in the fall. So does that kind of clarify? I do see when I'm looking at the attendance, I see some of you are a part of AEFL consortiums, and then a lot of you are not. So it is a pretty diverse attendee base. All right, is there anything else? So I will send out the PowerPoint to everybody, and if there's nothing else, then we can sign off. Thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said, I know this was a ton of information, so please do reach out to us for any questions, or just to kind of bounce ideas off. And I will get the PowerPoint out either today, but if not today, definitely by tomorrow. All right, well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, Beth, I'll try to get this up so that when you send the PowerPoint out to all the registered participants, you can just also send that link.
Oh, perfect.
So
Excellent.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks. Bye-bye.